Earth's oceans were once ruled by monsters so immense it is hard to imagine they ever existed. 20-foot armored cephalopods and 8-foot sea scorpions with claws nearly half a meter long. Forget high oxygen or chilly depths. The real reason for this age of giants was a relentless battle for dominance in every corner of the sea. The secret behind why ancient oceans produce so many titans is not about the environment, but about competition. What happened next would change the rules of life forever. Beneath the surface of the Ordovician seas, life unfolded on a scale that defies modern imagination. Among the shifting currents and soft muds, Endoceras reigned as the undisputed giant. These straight-shelled cephalopods stretched over 20 feet long, their fossilized remains first unearthed in the black shales of New York and Ontario. The secret to their size lay hidden within their architecture, a shell built not just for protection, but for buoyancy. Inside, a wide, eccentrically placed siphuncle ran the length of the shell, packed with layered endocones. This structure allowed Endoceras to manage its position in the water, floating just above the seafloor with minimal effort. Unlike modern squids or nautiluses, these ancient predators did not need speed. Their massive shells made them slow, but nearly untouchable. In these deep, low-oxygen waters, gravity lost its grip. Buoyancy chambers filled with gas or fluid let Endoceras hover and wait, conserving energy for the rare moments when a trilobite or brachiopod wandered too close. The shell size alone deterred most threats. Few creatures dared challenge something so large, yet fossil beds tell a story of relentless competition. In the shales of the Trenton and Utica formations, shattered shells and scattered fragments betray the presence of rivals. Some Endoceras shells show signs of crushing or breakage, not from outside predators, but likely from clashes with their own kind. The arms race was internal. Only another Endoceras could hope to breach that armored fortress. As individuals grew larger, the stakes rose higher, driving the lineage toward ever greater size. This evolutionary spiral was not without cost. The same shell that granted dominance also brought vulnerability. Heavy and cumbersome, Endoceras could not outmaneuver faster, more agile newcomers. But for a time, size alone ruled the Ordovician depths, and the ocean floor belonged to these colossal architects of buoyancy and bone. The Silurian seas saw the rise of a new kind of giant, Gigantism, the sea scorpion. At over 8 feet long, with a single claw stretching 46 centimeters, this arthropod was built for close-quarters combat. Fossils from the Rhenish slate of Germany reveal more than just size. They capture the aftermath of violent encounters. Carapaces bear punctures and gouges that match the curvature and spacing of Gigantism's own claws. Some of these wounds show partial healing, the exoskeleton regrown and smoothed over, suggesting not just predation, but survival after battle. James Lamsdell, who has studied these specimens, points to the pattern of injuries as evidence of rivalry rather than simple hunting. In crowded Silurian lagoons, resources and mates were worth fighting for, and the scars left behind tell a story of repeated, ritualized clashes. The anatomy of Gigantism supports this. Its chelicerae, armed with robust denticles, were capable of both slicing armored prey and grappling with rivals. Positive allometry in the claws, disproportionate growth as individuals matured, meant that the biggest adults wielded the most formidable weapons. Unlike the sluggish Endoceras of earlier seas, Gigantism was an active hunter. Its lateral eyes with high visual acuity tracked armored fish and other eurypterids through murky waters. But the greatest threat often came from its own kind. Fossilized trackways and drag marks across ancient tidal flats hint at territorial patrols, while the distribution of injuries on fossil exoskeletons suggests targeted strikes, not random violence. In the Silurian arms race, size and weaponry escalated together. The ocean floor became a battleground where only the largest and most heavily armed survived long enough to leave their mark in stone. The evidence, preserved in carapace and claw, reveals a world where the drive to outmatch rivals shaped bodies as much as any external predator. Jaw power became the currency of survival in the Devonian seas. Dunkleosteus, a placoderm fish nearly 30 feet long, wielded a set of jaws unlike anything before or since. Its skull was fused into a natural battering ram, and the jaws themselves were not lined with teeth, but with bony plates that sharpened against each other every time the mouth opened and closed. This self-honing mechanism meant each bite delivered a fresh razor edge, capable of splitting bone and shell in a single motion. Biomechanical studies have measured the force of a Dunkleosteus bite at up to 80,000 newtons, enough to crush a modern car door. The secret lay in a system of levers built into the skull. The lower jaw was anchored by powerful muscles, and the length of the lever arm multiplied the force delivered at the tip. The plates acted like a pair of industrial shears, focusing all that energy into a narrow, cutting edge. Fossilized jawbones show wear patterns where the plates slid past each other, leaving grooves and polish marks that match the predicted stress points from engineering models. This machinery was not just for show. In the crowded Devonian reefs, armored prey were everywhere: placoderms, early sharks, and shelled invertebrates. Only a predator with overwhelming bite force could break through the defenses of rivals or potential meals. The largest Dunkleosteus individuals had the greatest leverage, their jaws opening and snapping shut in milliseconds. Some skull fossils even show evidence of rapid, repeated strikes, microfractures, and healed breaks that suggest these animals pushed their own anatomy to the limits. The engineering behind Dunkleosteus's bite made it the undisputed apex predator of its era. Every detail, from the shape of the plates to the length of the jaw, reveals a relentless drive for mechanical advantage. In this arms race of bone and muscle, brute force was often the final arbiter, and the fossil record preserves the scars of those ancient battles. Fossilized armor plates from the Cleveland Shale bear the unmistakable imprint of ancient violence. Deep gouges, crescent-shaped scars, and punctures align perfectly with the biting surfaces of Dunkleosteus's own jaw plates. Some wounds slice through the thickest bone, their edges smoothed by partial healing, proof that these attacks were not always fatal. The pattern and spacing of these marks rule out sharks or other predators. Only another Dunkleosteus could deliver such force and precision. In some specimens, bite scars overlap along the jawline and cranial shield, suggesting repeated confrontations, likely over territory or mates. The evidence extends beyond battered skeletons. Coprolites, fossilized feces, preserved in the same shale beds, are packed with splintered bone fragments. Under the microscope, these fragments reveal the layered structure of placoderm armor, confirming their origin. Some coprolites contain nothing but finely ground bone, indicating a diet that included not just prey, but rivals as well. This dietary trace leaves little doubt. Dunkleosteus was both predator and cannibal, consuming armored fish and, at times, its own kind. Plate damage analysis reveals a grim calculus. The largest individuals show the most extensive scarring, their armor thickened and regrown over old wounds. Smaller specimens rarely display such marks, hinting at a hierarchy where size alone determines survival. The fossil record here is more than a catalog of anatomy. It is a forensic archive of behaviors, rivalries, and the relentless drive for dominance. These traces, scarred plates, bone-rich coprolites, and healed wounds, offer direct confirmation of an arms race that played out in the Devonian seas. In an ecosystem crowded with giants, being bigger and stronger was not just an advantage, but a necessity. The scars of Dunkleosteus, etched in stone, stand as silent testimony to a world where competition drove creatures to monstrous proportions. In the late Cretaceous, the western interior seaway split North America from the Arctic to the Gulf of Mexico, forming a vast, shallow basin teeming with life. Here, Mosasaurs became the undisputed rulers. The largest, like Tylosaurus and Mosasaurus hoffmanni, stretched between 14 and 17 meters, longer than a city bus. These reptiles were not just big, they were apex predators in an ecosystem that funneled energy upward with remarkable efficiency. The secret to their size lay in the productivity of the seaway itself. Rivers carried nutrients from distant mountains, feeding enormous blooms of plankton. This, in turn, supported dense swarms of fish, ammonites, and smaller marine reptiles. The food web was tightly packed, and every level pulsed with energy. In this environment, the path to dominance was clear: grow larger, eat bigger prey, and avoid becoming prey yourself. Gut contents from Tylosaurus specimens reveal a menu that included sharks, turtles, and even other mosasaurs. Some fossils preserve bite marks on the bones of rivals, evidence of violent clashes over territory or mates. Isotopic studies of the seaway's black shales show pulses of high productivity, carbon-rich layers that coincide with the peak of mosasaur gigantism. These were not slow, lumbering giants. Bone structure and growth rings suggest a physiology closer to modern predatory reptiles, with bursts of rapid growth in nutrient-rich years. The western interior seaway acted as an energy funnel, concentrating resources into a relatively confined space. This set a ceiling on how large predators could become, limited only by the amount of energy that could be captured and converted into muscle and bone. In this crowded, competitive world, the only way to stay at the top was to keep growing. Archelon, the largest sea turtle ever known, glided through the Cretaceous seaway with a presence that dwarfed all modern relatives. Its domed carapace stretched nearly 4.6 meters from front to back, longer than a family sedan and broad enough to shelter a grown adult lying flat. Fossils from South Dakota's Pierre Shale reveal not just the scale of this armored giant, but also the subtle engineering that let such bulk stay afloat. The shell's cross-bracing, a network of thickened ridges, distributed weight while resisting the crushing pressure of deep water. At over 2 tons, Archelon was not built for speed. Instead, its size alone offered protection. Few predators could hope to pierce that shell, and those that tried often left behind only shallow gouges or broken teeth. Evidence of Archelon's diet comes from the faintest traces: wear patterns on the beak, the scattered remains of ammonites and inoceramid clams in the same sediments, and rare coprolites laced with fish scales and squid beaks. The jaws were broad and crushing, suited for breaking tough shells or tearing soft-bodied prey from the seafloor. In the warm, nutrient-rich shallows of the western interior seaway, food was plentiful enough to support such a slow-moving giant. Archelon's immense energy needs could be met only in an ecosystem flush with plankton blooms and dense schools of fish. Its survival strategy was simple: grow large, grow armored, and let the abundance of the sea do the rest. In a world ruled by swift mosasaurs and agile sharks, Archelon proved that another path to gigantism was possible, one built on defense, endurance, and the quiet certainty that nothing short of a true monster could pose a threat. In prehistoric oceans, growing to immense size was not just a matter of chance. The economics of size are written into the laws of biology and physics. As animals get bigger, their mass increases faster than their surface area, a pattern known as Kleiber's rule. This means that pound for pound, larger creatures use energy more efficiently than smaller ones. A giant Dunkleosteus or Mosasaur needed less food per unit of body weight compared to a swarm of smaller fish. But the benefits of size came with steep costs. Moving through water is a constant battle against drag, and as a creature's body expands, the penalty for pushing that bulk through the sea grows even faster. Each increase in length multiplies the resistance, forcing giants to burn more energy just to move at the same speed as their smaller rivals. Buoyancy offered a partial solution. Shells packed with gas chambers, like those in Endoceras, and the broad carapaces of Archelon allowed these animals to float and conserve energy, but there were limits. Too much bulk slowed reaction times and made it harder to chase prey or escape threats. The trade-off was clear. Size granted safety and feeding advantages, but demanded specialized adaptations to offset the rising costs of movement and metabolism. Not all giants solved these challenges the same way. Some, like Dunkleosteus, relied on bursts of jaw power, while others, such as Mosasaurs, developed streamlined bodies and powerful tails. The path to gigantism depended on balancing energy intake with the mechanical realities of life underwater. In the end, only those lineages that mastered these trade-offs could afford to reach such extraordinary sizes. Mass extinctions swept through prehistoric oceans like a scythe, wiping away the giants that once seemed invincible. The Devonian Kellwasser event and the later Hangenberg crisis erased entire dynasties of armored fish, leaving the fossil record with a sharp break. One moment, Dunkleosteus and its kin ruled the reefs. The next, their bones settled into silence. In the aftermath, smaller, more agile hunters surged into the empty spaces. Shark lineages that once lived in the shadow of placoderm titans began to flourish, their streamlined bodies and rapid metabolisms better suited to the new, oxygen-starved seas. The collapse of one giant's reign became the opportunity for another form to rise. Each extinction acted as a filter, resetting the evolutionary board and forcing survivors to adapt or vanish. Old strategies, heavy armor, brute force, sheer bulk, suddenly became liabilities instead of assets. The animals that endured were those able to exploit new resources or move quickly through changing waters. Over time, these bottlenecks favored innovation, new physiologies, faster metabolisms, and different paths to dominance. The pattern repeated after the Cretaceous, when the asteroid impact ended the age of marine reptiles. Mammals and birds, with their warm-blooded engines, filled the open ocean with new contenders for size and speed. Yet the drive toward gigantism never fully disappeared. Each extinction event pruned the tree, but the branches grew back, shaped by the changing rules of survival. The story of prehistoric giants is not just one of rise and fall, but of constant renewal, where the end of one era's monsters set the stage for the next generation of giants. The legacy of prehistoric giants lives on in today's oceans, where blue whales and giant squid echo ancient arms races with every surge and dive. As modern seas change, warming, acidifying, and losing biodiversity, the forces that once bred titans still shape survival. Evolution never stops negotiating power in the deep. What emerges next depends on the choices we make above the surface. Share your thoughts below. What future giants do you imagine?